Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the continuation of Muqaddimah hadramiyyah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this lesson a reason for forgiveness, a reason for goodness. And may Allah answer our prayers and bless us in your protection from all calamities and trials in dunya and akhirah. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. Today I started off late, so for today we will straight away enter into Muqaddimah hadramiyyah, inshallah. For Adab and Sulukil Murid, we will continue the next week, inshallah. So we are still in speaking about the chapter of Istihadah. And in our previous lessons, we spoke about the first two types of Istihadah. Number one is the Mubtada'a al-Mumayyiza, and number two is Mubtada'a Ghayrul Mumayyiza. So inshallah ta'ala, what I will do is that we will do revision, inshallah, so that it becomes clear, and we are not really rushing into anything. So, and the fact that this topic requires revision and requires study, so inshallah we go back again and we speak about some of the things that we have spoken before we continue to our lesson today. Today inshallah ta'ala we speak about the third type of Istihadah, which is coming, inshallah. So initially in our lesson we spoke about sorry. So now we go back to the slides. So this is the first thing that we started off with. The beginner who can distinguish. The beginner who can distinguish. Yani Mubtada'a Mumayyiza. So this is a situation where someone who has not experienced any menses, a female who has not experienced any menses, and then she saw blood more than 15 days. She saw blood more than 15 days. And why 15 days? And we mentioned that menses, the maximum number of days for menses is 15 days. Anything that is below 15 days is menses. Anything that is below 15 days is menses. But if the blood exceed 15 days and more, then this is the rulings of Istihadah that we are speaking about. So if this particular person is a beginner, and I mentioned many a times the meaning of a beginner, she has not experienced any menses before. So when she saw any blood for the first time, it extend to up to 20 days for example. So this is a situation where she is a Mubtada'a, and she is a Mumayyiza. Mumayyiza meaning she is able to distinguish the color of the blood. So I gave an example of she saw any blood for 10 days black in color, and 10 days red in color. So in this situation, we say that the first 10 days is considered to be menses. The second 10 days is considered to be Istihadah. How do we make such judgment? By the observation of the observation of the color of the blood. So the darker color is considered to be menses, the lighter color is considered to be any Istihadah. And we mentioned there are four conditions. This example can be said such if the four conditions are are there. So these are the four conditions. So this is basically translation of what Shaykh al-Bayjuri mentioned in Hashiyah Bayjuri ala Ibn Qasim. So I managed to translate. So these are the four conditions. The beginner who can distinguish any Mubtada'a Mumayyiza is one who experienced blood for the first time and is able to distinguish its characteristics. She is able to distinguish the black from the strong and weak bloods, like black and red respectively. The weaker blood is considered to be Istihadah even if it prolongs, even if it prolongs. As for the strong blood, it will be considered to be menses if any of the four conditions are present. So going back into the example earlier, we gave an example where she saw any 10 days any black in color and 10 days any red in color. So number one, the condition is that it must not any be less than 24 hours. Any the stronger blood should not be less than 24 hours, because the minimum in menses is that it must be 24 hours and more. Anything that is less than 24 hours and it cannot be considered to be menses. So if a woman, and for example, and she said that she saw black blood, and for example for the first 3 hours, and then for the rest of the 19 days she saw red and in color, so this is not considered to be mumayyiza. This is not considered to be mumayyiza, because the minimum is that it must be 24 hours, unless if she say, for example, I saw black blood and for example for 2 days, and then for the rest 18 days all red in color. So here we say the 2 days is menses, and the 18 days is considered to be istihadah. Why? And because this exceed the minimum number of menses, and that is 24 hours. So this is point number one. Point number two, it does not extend to more than 15 days. The black blood, for example, the stronger blood, and it does not go more than 15 days, because 15 days is a maximum days for menses, and if it goes any more than 15 days, and an example will be, if you say, for example, I saw any black blood for 17 days, and then I saw red blood for 10 days, for example. So we cannot be saying that the 17 days is menses and the 10 days is istihadah. It doesn't work like that. Why it doesn't work like that? And because it has exceeded more than the maximum number of days for menses. So in this situation, we do not consider her to be mumayyiza. Just like in the first situation, we do not consider her to be mumayyiza. If she see any blood, black blood upon the stronger blood any less than 24 hours, she is not considered to be mumayyiza. Likewise, if she saw the stronger blood any more than 15 days, she is not considered to be mumayyiza. So this is number two. Number three, the weak blood must not be less than the minimum clean days. And this I mentioned many a times in the previous lesson, that this is in a situation where the second cycle comes. If the second cycle comes, for example, if the woman saw blood for black blood for 5 days, and then after that for 15 days she saw red blood, and after the red blood comes black blood again. So if in this situation, if you have any weak blood in between two strong bloods, the minimum number of days of the weak blood must be more than the minimum number of clean days, that is 15 days. So if it is more 15 days and more, then we consider the second strong blood that comes after the weak blood to be menses. So an example will be, she saw blood for 5 days black in color, and then 16 days red in color, and then for 5 days black in color. So black, red, black, strong, weak, strong. So in this situation, we have to apply this third condition. The weak blood, the red blood in this case, it must not be less than the minimum number of clean days, that is 15 days. But if she saw, for example, 10 days black, 10 days red, and then 10 days black, now this is not considered to be mumayyiza. Again, I repeat, she saw 10 days black, 10 days red, 10 days black. So we cannot say that the first 10 days is menses, the second 10 days is istihadah, and then menses again. It doesn't work like that. In this situation, we consider her to be not any mumayyiza. Although she can see the difference in the color of the blood, but the ruling is that she is not any mumayyiza, as though she cannot differentiate between the colors, because one of the conditions of tamyiz, as what I mentioned here, one of the 4 conditions is not present. That is, in between the two strong bloods, the weaker blood is less than 15 days. Some of you might be asking, but earlier I mentioned, if she saw first 10 days black, second 10 days red, I said that the first 10 days is menses, second 10 days is istihadah. This is in a situation if the second 10 days which is red, after it complete, then comes in the clean days, meaning there is no other blood for example. So we do not consider we do not consider the clean days any to be any istihadah. So that is why the author any earlier any mentioned that there is no maximum any number any for the clean days. So clean days any can be 1 year, can be 2 years. So when we speak any about the example, the first 10 days any she saw black in color, the second 10 days any she saw red in color. This is any in a situation where we are not speaking any about the stronger blood and it comes in again immediately any after that. So the third any situation and speaks any about if any she saw any the stronger blood comes any again. So then any the condition any must be that the weaker blood which is in between the two strong bloods, it must be more than 15 days. So I hope any it is clear any inshallah. Point number 4, yeah, that it is any continuous. Continuous any meaning what you call it, it is not in a situation anywhere a woman any for example any she saw first 2 days any black in color, and then after that 2 days red in color, and then 2 days black in color, black red. In that any situation, then she is not any considered to be mumayyiza. She is not considered to be mumayyiza because any it is not continuous. It is not any continuous. So one day black and 1 day red. It is kind of a mix. When it is any such, then we do not consider her any to be mumayyiza. That is why any in the examples any earlier any we speak any about first 10 days any black, second 10 days any red, or first 5 days any black, and then the rest 15 days for example red. Then only any we consider any this any to be the stronger blood any to consider to be menses, whereas the weaker blood any consider any to be any istihadah, because the weaker blood any is the ruling any of the weaker blood is considered to be like the clean days. But if you have 1 day black, 1 day red, 1 day black, 1 day red, then you cannot any be saying any that only the black days any are menses, and then the red blood any is considered to be istihadah, because any it cannot work any like that, because anything that is below any 15 days any is considered any to be menses. So 1 day black, 1 day red, and it cannot work out, or 3 days black and 3 days red and then black again. If a woman and for example and it says I saw the first 3 days any black, and then the second 3 days red, and then the third any 3 days black, so this is not continuous. This is an example any of blood any that is not any continuous. So in between any the stronger blood any is the weaker blood. In between any the stronger blood is the weaker blood, and it is less any than the minimum number any of clean days. So I hope any it is clear. This is just any a revision, but I think any it is important. I know this subject is something any that is not any easy, any especially any for men. Type now any we go any to the second one. I give any examples. All this any we spoke about last week. No need any for me I think to repeat any again. This is exactly any what we mentioned any earlier. Okay, now any again any we go back any to number 3. Inshallah later on we go to number 3. This number 2 situation in number 2. For today's any lesson actually we be going any into number 3 and hopefully any number 4. Number 3 and number 4 inshallah. So the beginner any with non-distinctive any blood characteristics. This is any the second type that is called mubtada'a ghayrul mumayyiza. Meaning, so now any again and you have a beginner mubtada'a, but she is unable any to distinguish the color of the blood. Meaning any she saw the blood any for all any 20 days red in color. For all any 20 days, she cannot differentiate any which is a strong blood, which is a weaker blood. So the author yani mentioned as-suratu thaniya hiya al-mubtada'a ay hiya al-mubtada'a ay awwalu ma ibtada'aha ad-damu kama taqaddama ghayrul mumayyizati wa hiya allati tarahu bi sifatin wahida. As what I mentioned, and she saw blood and with one color. Wa mithluha mumayyizatu allati faqadat shartan min shuruti at-tamyiz. Shurutu tamyiz any are the 4 conditions. Shurutu tamyiz are the 4 conditions. Any that the stronger blood must not be less any than 24 hours. It must not be more than 15 days. The weaker blood in between any strong blood, and it should not any be lesser any than 15 days. And then point number 4, that the blood any must be continuous. The blood any must be continuous. This is, we call it shurutu tamyiz. So those any who are learning this chapter any of istihadah, you got no choice except you must memorize any of these 4 things, and you must understand. You must understand, because if you don't understand, then certainly you will make mistake. So he said that if any of the four conditions any is not present, then she is not considered to be mumayyiza. فَحَيْضُهَا يَوْمَ وَلَيْلَةً. So for mubtada'a ghayr mumayyiza, if a woman any for example says that first time any I saw blood, and suddenly any I saw 20 days any all any red in color or all in black in color, she cannot any differentiate any the difference any colors any of the blood. So we say for you, your head any is the first any day, the first any 24 hours any is considered to be menses, and the rest any istihadah. So you have any to make up for all the prayers, you have any to make up any for all the fasting any that you have not done, thinking that it is menses, but actually only the first day any is menses, the rest any of the day any is considered to be istihadah. This is what any he said, fa haydhuha yawmun wa layla wa tuhruha tis'una 20. So the rest any of the month any is considered any to be what you call it, the clean days, is considered to be the clean days. But this is in what you call it, in a situation and where the author said in Arafat waqtal ibtida idam, with the condition any if she knows then when the blood starts. Yani for example any a woman and he say that I saw blood any on the 3rd any of Rabiul Awal, I saw blood any on the 3rd any of Rabiul Awal. So now she knows anywhere when any the blood any starts. So then any we consider her any to be ghayr mumayyiza. Her menses any is considered to be the first day. The menses considered to be the first day. The rest any of the days any are considered to be clean days and istihadah. But if she cannot any remember when any the blood starts, then she is a mutahayyira. She is any a mutahayyira, which we will speak about. Maybe not today any, because any you might not have time any to go any to yani situation number 5. Situation number 5 any is going to be speaking any about something any that is a bit difficult. That is the issue any of the mutahayyira, which inshallah ta'ala any we will speak about. So this is any the translation. If you look at the translation, so we read again, yani the author any is saying, author here meaning Al-Imam Bayjuri, for your information. The second any type is the beginner mubtada'a who cannot distinguish the blood. Any mubtada'a ghayr mumayyiza, she is the one who saw blood with the same characteristics any of color, yani meaning for 20 days any black or 20 days any red. Likewise any the mumayyiza who does not fulfill any of the 4 conditions of distinguishment, the tamyiz, that's what we mentioned, any the 4 things. So what is going any to be the ruling for her? Her menses any is 1 day and night 24 hours, and her clean days is 29 days. If she knew the time of the blood any present, yani if she know any when the blood any starts. If she doesn't know, she falls any under the category of mutahayyira, which we explain later. So this is any type any number 2, no issue. Now any we go on any to situation any number 3. Situation any number 3 is not any a beginner. Situation any number 3 any is not a beginner, yani she is mu'tada. So you have to be familiarized any with this terminology. You have any mubtada'a any is a beginner. Mu'tada yani is someone any who has experienced any menses before, even for one time. Remember this, even any for one time, any meaning she experienced any menses any for the first month, and her menses any such any for example 5 days in the second week any of the month any for example, she saw any blood any for 5 days, but the next any cycle she saw blood any for 20 days. So this is any mu'tada. We do not consider her to be mubtada'a, because she has any experience any menses and even any for once, and we consider her to be mu'tada. So mu'tada again any is a person any who has experienced any menses. So now the author is going to speak about mu'tada, yani the one who experienced any menstrual. I mentioned here the habitual, although there is a better any translation, because I just translated any earlier. What you call it? I will need any to get any a better form any of translation, inshallah. But ala kulli hal, the meaning any of habitual here any is, as what I mentioned, a woman any who has experienced any menses. هي المعتادة وهي التي سبق لها حيض وطهر المميزة. يعني she is a habitual and she has experienced any menses, and she is able any to distinguish any the color any of the blood. وهي التي ترى قويا وضعيفا كما تقدم. Just like how any earlier the author said that how she is able any to see any the difference any between the colors any of the blood. What is any the strong color and what is any the weak color. Just like any she is able any to see black and red or red and yellow. So meaning she's a mumayyiza, she's able to distinguish the color of the blood. فَيُحْكَمُ لَهَا بِتَمْيِيزٍ لَا عَادَةٍ. So we gave the ruling based on tamyiz, based on distinguishment of the color of the blood, and not based on her norm. Earlier I gave the example, she said that she saw blood for the first 5 days of the month. The first 5 days of the month. The next month she saw blood for 20 days. So we asked, can you distinguish the color of the blood? She said yes. This mumayyiza. So how do you distinguish the color of the blood? She said the first 10 days is black in color, the second 10 days is red in color. So now this kind of distinguishment of the blood, it contradicts her norm. How many days is her norm? Her norm is 5 days. But now the distinguishment of the blood, it says that the strong blood is 10 days. So which one we give any precedence? Do we give any precedence to the distinguishment of the color of the blood, or do we give any precedence to her norm? The answer is we give any precedence to the distinguishment of the color of the blood. So we say that the first 10 days is considered to be menses, and the next 10 days is considered to be istihadah, whereas her norm is only for 5 days. So here the author mention la aada mukhalifatan lahu wa illam yatakhallal bainahuma aqallu tuhri wa illam yatakhallal bainahuma aqallu tuhri. So now you have a situation where a person saw any blood, and she is able to distinguish the color the color of the blood. So we mentioned then the color of the blood is given any precedence over the norm. So the norm is 5 days. The distinguishment of the color of the blood and strong blood is 10 days. And so we say that this 10 days is considered to be menses. And all the conditions that we speak about the clean days in between, all is applied the same as what we mentioned. So he said, وَفَلَوْ كَانَ عَادَتُهَا خَمْسَ مِنْ أَوَّلِ الشَّهْرِ وَبَقِيَّتُهُ طُهْرٌ فَلَمَّا نَزَلَ عَلَيْهَا الدَّمُ اسْتَمَرَّ رَأَتْ عَشَرَ. This is exactly the example I gave earlier. Her norm is 5 days, and then the tamyiz is 10 days, and 10 days black in color, and the rest is red in color, for example. So it is 10 days, not the 5 days. It's considered to be the menses. It is the 10 days. Then the author mentioned لِأَنَّ التَّمْيِيزَ أَقْوَى مِنَ الْعَادَةِ. Yani this distinguishment is stronger than the norm. لِأَنَّهُ عَلَامَةٌ فِي الدَّمِ وَهِيَ عَلَامَةٌ فِي صَاحِبَتِهِ. So this is a signal, or it is a sign to distinguish between what is menses and what is istihadah. So the distinguishment of the color of the strong blood and the weak blood itself is a strong indication that it is menses, and the weaker blood is considered to be an istihadah. So this sign is stronger than considering the norm of a person. فَلَوْ كَانَتِ الْعَادَةُ غَيْرَ مُخَالِفَةٍ لِلتَّمْيِيزِ. But if it coincide, the ada and tamyiz, the distinguishment of blood and the norm of a person who saw the blood, 5 days ada, 5 days based on norm, and 5 days based on distinguishment, then khalas, we say hukima laha bihima ma'an. Yani it is considered to be menses, and the 5 days is considered to be menses. Walau takhallala bainahuma aqallu tuhri ka'an ra'at ba'da khamsatiha 20 da'ifan summa khamsatan qawiyan. Now he gave an example. What if what you call it, after 5 days, the first 5 days she saw 20 days a weaker blood. After the first 5 days, she saw blood for 25 days. She saw blood for 25 days. So now when she saw blood for 25 days, if the norm is the first 5 days, the norm is the first 5 days, and then if you minus the norm, it is more than the 15 days. So he gave an example, then she saw blood for 25 days. So based on the norm, if she cannot differentiate what you call it, the blood, we say that the first 5 days is considered to be the menses, based on the norm. And then after that, you have 20 days of weak blood, and then came a strong blood for 5 days. and then came any strong blood for 5 days. So now, in between the blood, based any on the norm and based any on the distinguishment any of the stronger blood, you have the weaker blood, and that is the red color blood, which is more than 15 days. So in this instance, and we say that the first 5 days is menses and based any on her norm, whereas the second 5 days and that comes after the weaker blood, this is based on the distinguishment of the blood. So the first cycle we consider the norm, because she cannot differentiate the color of the blood, and the second cycle we consider the distinguishment of the blood, because now she can differentiate between the strong blood and the weaker blood. So what the author is trying to tell us, that it is possible that at times you go back to your norm, at times you go back into the tamyiz, you go back into the distinguishment of blood, because the color of blood can change, and sometimes a woman saw one color, sometimes she's able to distinguish blood, sometimes she is mumayyiza, sometimes it's like mumayyiza. So when she cannot differentiate the color of the blood, you go back to your norm. But if you can differentiate the color of the blood, then we go back to the stronger blood as menses. But of course, with all the conditions that we have mentioned, and one of it is that it must be in between, the clean days, and it must be more than 15 days, or the weaker blood, it must more than 15 days. If you speak about the distinguishment of the blood. So he mentioned فَقَدْغُ الْعَادَةِ حَيْضٌ وَلِلْعَادَةِ وَقَدْغُ تَمِيزْ حَيْضٌ آخَرٌ. So this is what exactly what I mentioned earlier, that the first 5 days is based on the norm, the second 5 days is based on the tamyiz. Now we look at the translation. I just translated this before Maghrib. So inshallah we run to the translation. The author basically saying the third time. This is exactly what I mentioned, we read again. The third time, she is the one who has a habitual menstruation and is able to distinguish the color of the blood. That is the strong and weak ones, as mentioned before. For her, the distinguishment is given precedence over her norm if it contradicts. So earlier, as what I mentioned, I gave the example. She saw normally, she saw blood for 5 days, but suddenly, she saw blood more than 15 days, and she's able to distinguish color of the blood. So with all the conditions, we say that the stronger blood is menses, the weaker blood is considered to be istihadah, even if it surpasses the norm, 10 days black in color. We say 10 days it's menses, and not 5 days. If the norm is 5 days in the beginning of the month and the rest is clean days, if the blood appears and continues, and she saw 10 days black from the beginning of the month and the rest of is red, then the menses is 10 days and not 5 days. And because 5 days based on the norm, so we say that the distinguishment is stronger than the norm. This is because he said distinguishment is stronger than the norm. Then the norm is a mistake. As it is a sign in the blood and the person. The sign in the blood is a person that she is what you call it having menses or istihadah. If the norm does not contradict the distinguishment, like in the case, if the norm is 5 days in the beginning of the month, and then comes the distinguishment, then it will be judged that both are menses, with the condition that in between the two is minimum clean days, that is 15 days. She saw 5 days, the first 5 days, and then another 25 days red, and then comes 5 days strong. So now we have in between norm and tamyiz, you have 25 days or 20 days. Then khalas, we say this is menses. Number 1 is menses, number 2 is also menses, but the difference is the first one is menses and based on the norm, the second one is menses and based on the distinguishment of the blood. So this is point number 3. Situation number 3. Now when we go into situation number 4, the one who has a habitual menstruation, who is not able to distinguish the blood. So the one who has a habitual menstruation and is not able to distinguish the blood. So the author mentioned هي المعتادة بأن سبق لها حيض وطهر كما مر غير المميزة بأن تراه بصفة كما مر أيضا الذاكرة لعادتها قدرا ووقتا فيرد إليها قدرا ووقتا. So now this is a situation, a woman has experienced menses and she cannot differentiate the color of the blood. For example, she saw blood for 20 days red, and she cannot differentiate basically which is menses and which is istihadah. So now she has to go back to her norm, with the condition if she remembers the number of days that she usually any has menses, and the time of its occurrence, whether it is in the beginning any of the month, or it is in the middle any of the month, or it is in the end any of the month. If she says any, for example, my menses usually is in the beginning any of the month, so she remembers that every third day or every any fourth day any of the month that she will have any menses any for 5 days. But 1 month any comes, she saw any blood any for 20 days. Then khalas any, we say that you go back to your norm. You go back any to your norm, since any you remember when your menses any always come. So the first any 5 days is considered to be menses, and the rest any is considered to be istihadah. The rest any is considered to be istihadah. This is in a situation where she cannot differentiate the color any of the blood. So the difference any between number 4 and number 3 is that number 3 can differentiate. So we give precedence any to the distinguishment of blood. That's what we mentioned. But when it comes into number 4 any easy, she cannot any differentiate. So we go back any to the norm, and since and she is able any to remember how many days that she usually any has any menses and when. So this is the meaning of qadran wa waqtan. Qadran yani number of days, waqtan yani is when, whether it is in beginning of the month or middle of the month and so on. فَلَوْ حَاضَتْ فِي شَهْرٍ خَمْسَةَ أَيَّامٍ مِنْ أَوَّلِهِ مَثَلًا ثُمَّ اسْتُحِيضَتْ فَحَيْضُهَا هِيَ الْخَمْسَةِ. As what we mentioned, that if she usually any for 5 days in the beginning any of the month any she has any menses, then any we say that the first 5 days of the month where she saw any blood any continuously for more than 15 days, the first any 5 days any is considered to be menses. وَطُهْرُهَا بَقِيَّةُ الشَّهْرِ, and the clean days any is regarded any as the rest any of the first 5 days. And then any he mentioned amalan bi'adatiha, any based any on her norm. So now any we apply any the norm. وَإِن لَمْ تَتَكَرَّرْ, even yani if it is any for one time. Yani for example, a woman any for example, she saw blood any for the first time any menses, 5 days. Any let's say any in the beginning of the month of Muharram. The beginning any of the month of Muharram, any for the first any 5 days she saw blood. So khalas any we say this menses. But when comes any to the month of Safar, the second month, she saw blood any for 20 days. So is she considered to be a mumayyiza or mu'tada? She is considered to be a mu'tada even yani if the occurrence any is one. So this is any a principle any in fiqh, that al-'ada tasbutu walau bimarrah. This is a principle, a qaida. Al-'adatu tasbutu al-'adatu walau bimarratin. Yani a norm and is established and even if it occurrence any only for one time. So this one in the author is saying. So even any if she say that this is my second time and I'm having my second time and not first time. If first time khalas and we say she is a mubtada'a. So now any she is saying any that this is any my second time. This is any my second time. So we say that since any the first time is 5 days, then we say that the menses any is 5 days. This one in the author is saying لِأَنَّ الْعَادَةَ تَثْبُتُ بِمَرَّةٍ. As what I mentioned earlier, that the norm is established and even any if the occurrence any is only once. إِلَّمْ تَخْتَلِفْ, but the condition is that it must not change. It must not any change. فَإِنْ اخْتَلَفَتْ فَلَا تَثْبُتُ بِمَرَّةٍ. But if it changes, then we do not any consider yani the norm any to be what any she experienced. So let me give you an example. A woman any for example, she had any menses any for 3 times already. 3 times. The 4th time she saw blood any for 20 days. So we asked her first for the first month, how many days any is your menses? So she said that for the first month I saw blood any for 5 days any in the beginning any of the month. How about any second month? Second month any I saw blood any for 6 days. How about any third month? Third month any I saw blood any for 7 days. Third month any I saw blood any for blood any for 7 days. So now the situation any is such that she cannot any understand any her norm. She cannot any understand any the norm. Because why? Because any the norm any is changing. So we do not know whether the norm any is 5 days, or the norm any is 6 days, or the norm any is 7 days. If we can establish any, for example, if you say that, for example, that my experience in my menses, that for 3 months it will be 5, 6, 7. Then the 4th month and it goes back and into 5. Then the 5th month and it goes back and into 6. Then and the 6th month it goes back and into 7. Then after that it goes back and into 5 again. So meaning 1st month is 5, 2nd month is 6, 3rd month 7, 4th month it goes back to 5 again, and then 6, and then 7. So if we understand any this, what you call it, this cycle, any 5, 6, 7. So in this situation, when we want to ascertain the number of days any of menses, and we go back into that cycle. So let me give you an example. So now any a woman any has been experiencing any 3 months any like this. The 1st month any 5, 2nd month 6, 3rd month any is 7. So if she mentioned that the 4th month any, for example, any she saw blood any for 20 days any, for example. So do we consider the menses to be 5 days, 6 days, or 7 days? So if it is in the 4th month, we consider the menses to be the 5 days and not 6 and 7. Because why? Because we know that the cycle and it always goes back like that. First month and it 5, 2nd month 6, 3rd month 7, and then it goes back to 5, 6, 7, and then 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 like that. So now we can ascertain that the 1st month and it is going and it to be 5 days, the 2nd month is going to be the 6 days, the 3rd month is going and it to be the 7 days. The 3rd month is going to be the 7 days. So in the situation where during the 4th month, yani after the 7 days, and the month that comes any after that, if she saw blood any for 20 days, and that's what I mentioned, we ascertain that the menses any is 5 days. This is any the meaning any of when there is any a difference. When there is any a difference, yani we cannot establish the norm based any on 5 days. Because why? There is a change. There is a change. So the norm any, if the norm that we mentioned earlier, that if she only experienced any menses for 1 month and it is 5 days, no problem, and we take any 5 days. But if the occurrence any occur and there is a difference any in the number any of days, then we have to study the cycle in order for us any to ascertain the number yani of days any for menses and istihadah. Wallahu a'lam bis-shawab. Rabbana taqabbal du'ana innaka antas samiul alim. وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم واختم بصالحات أعمالنا وأجرنا الله يا كريم بفضل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.